Have you ever wondered what it would be like to live in Mayberry? It seems to be a genuine topic for those of us who like old stuff and the old nostalgic ideals. We love the Andy Griffith Show. So it got me thinking, in the antique world, if we were to take one specific scene from, say, a vintage TV show, full of antiques, full of things that we love, and divide it out, what would that particular scene be worth? You ever think of that? Man, I wonder what the stuff on the Andy Griffith Show is worth, or I wonder what the stuff on the Brady Bunch is worth. Well, we're going to answer that question to you today. I have taken 3 scenes from vintage TV shows, one being Andy Griffith, one being the Brady Bunch, and one being Little House on the Prairie. And we're going to break down a single scene of each of those TV shows and see if you've got the eye to catch what it is that might be worth some value. This is going to be an exercise to train your eye to catch things. It's also going to be kind of a fun opportunity for us to look back at the nostalgic TV shows of old, and which we all love. So the first one I want to talk about is the Brady Bunch scene. You'll see that on your screen. And what we've got here is a scene of Mom and Dad Brady with 3 of the kids. I guess Marcia, if I were good enough, I could tell you their names. What's funny about this is I can tell you the names of their appliances, but I can't tell you their names. Maybe you're in the same line with me. So when you look at this scene, I want you to look to the right and look at the appliances there in the wall. These are built-in double ovens, and those are by chance Imperial brand, and they're highly sought after. You would probably just look at that, or most people would, and say, hey, there's where their oven is at. But that's a mid to late 60s Imperial brand double oven. If you had one of those, you were among America's elite. And if you were to sell one of those today, you'd be looking at around a $950 retail on those. Okay, I guess look in the cabinet on the left. You'll notice a pink Pyrex dish there. If you know Pyrex at all, you'll know that pink Pyrex is even more valuable. And that, by chance, is a model number 232, and it will retail at the $43 value. On the shelf to the right, you will see a green-colored tin bread box. Those are pretty valuable, fairly well sought after. And I don't know that those are branded, but they're just kind of a opaque type green, and they were bread box, and they're in the $50 range. I found one on eBay as a comp, which, by the way, use eBay for your comps, for $46. Everybody loves aluminum canisters, kitchen canisters, sugar, cornmeal, flour, that sort of thing, and you'll see those right behind Mrs. Brady there. Those would retail in the $125 range, $125 range. The blender. Everybody loves a vintage blender, and it's an Osterizer is the name of that particular blender. They retail in the $60 range. But the home run for the Brady Bunch is the dining room table and the dining room set. You look at that and you think, I don't know so well about that, but that's a pretty valuable piece of furniture. I don't know the brand. There were several different brands of those. They were fiberglass in composition, some particle board on the dining room table, but they had that early 1970s, late 1960s look, a little bit of space age there. And that one is, kind of in the French oval style. One comparable to it in the retail market today would book for around $7,500. So when you're looking at this particular Brady Bunch scene, you're looking at about $8,700 worth of goodies just from what I could count. And I could probably keep going a little bit further with the spice rack and the refrigerator, which matches the bread box, which is pretty cool. But we'll stop there. Moving on to the Little House on the Prairie. Now what you've got here is a scene that is set in early 1900s, around the time of Little House on the Prairie. I'm actually going to date that to about 1935 because they drove that old A model truck, which would have been a 1930 or 31 model. So that's what you're looking at here in the general store, and there is a plethora of today's value in this. So I'm just going to kind of go through it. On the left, you'll see the cast iron potbelly stove. Those are going to retail by today's standards for about $400. On the shelf, front and center on the bottom, you'll see a crock jug. Everybody likes a good moonshine jug, and that's what you got there, retailing at about 50 bucks. Now, I want you to look far right, talking about crock jugs. There is a crock jug there, and that could possibly actually be a water canister that you would drink out of because of its size, if you'll notice its diameter. But nonetheless, it is crockware decorated with blue cobalt. And I'm going to put that in the $175 range, along with far left, the same design in a churn. One of the best pieces, in my opinion, in this whole picture is the built-in grain bin on the floor. It's under the counter, and everybody loves a grain bin because of its storage capability. I'm going to estimate that one in the $1,500 range. Lantern shades, bottom right of the picture, those are glass and would have been fairly valuable. Actually, you probably wouldn't have seen those in a general store in the time. But by today's retail market, you're going to see it about $40 a piece, and from what you can see there is about $240. Now, if you'll notice on the shelves, there's a lot of money up there in cast iron. I counted 13 pieces of cast iron cookware. I can't read the brand. Now, if it were Wagner or Griswold, it would probably be worth a lot more. But I'm guessing it's some company, maybe a Gated Lodge or something along those lines. But we're going to average those at $75 a piece, and that puts us right at $1,000 worth on that shelf by today's money. Put down some crock pitchers, like pitchers that you pour out of, not pictures that you look at. With my southern lingo, it's kind of hard to differentiate between the two. But two of those at $40 a piece. Bowls and basins, pitchers and basins, three of those at $50 a piece. I really like the candy canisters. Those are pretty cool. Everybody loves those. I could sell a lot of those at the store if we had them. $75 a piece takes us to $300. To the right side of the shelf, you will notice some blue willow dishes, and those will be in the neighborhood of $100 for what you see there. You'll also see a coffee grinder. I'm going to, say about $75 on that one if it's an original, which, who knows back then. This was made in the, 70s or 80s. Also in the grain bin, you'll see some grain scoops. People love grain scoops. That's something they could put on a table to decorate with or something along those lines. I'll value those at $50 each. And one last piece that I really like, on the left of the general store counter, you will see a wrapping paper roll. And on that wrapping paper roll, there's a cast iron implement that's used to hold that wrapping paper. Those are about $150 in my store. And they're very nice. You can actually rig those to put paper towels on, which makes them pretty cool and usable today. That puts us in about the $4,200 range in today's money for what you see in that picture. Now here's the fun one. Andy and Gomer at Wally's service station. What do we see here? What's the value of this particular picture? Now take a moment, if you want to, pause the video and do a little math yourself if you want to play along with the game, what you think this particular picture may be worth in all of its current retail value. Now there is some room for interpretation, and I might have missed a few things, but I will kind of lay down a little bit of what I believe this particular picture is worth. So first, the obvious thing is the two cars. The first one, the white one, the bigger one, is a 53 Ford. And in that condition, kind of in its original status, I'm going to estimate that in around the $7,000 mark in today's money. The forefront, I believe, is a 63 Ford Galaxy. All my Ford people can probably tell me a little bit better, but it's got the fins on the fenders and the double headlights. I believe it to be a 63 model just by what I can tell. I'm going to say it's worth about $10,500, somewhere in those lines. Can you imagine what the value of the original Wally's service station sign might be? We're going to say that that's not valued for anything for Hollywood. If it was just an original service station sign, I would estimate it in the $800 range. Of course, if it were the original Wally's service station sign from Andy Griffith, it would be worth a significant amount more. Now, look to the right underneath Wally's service station. There is a porcelain thermometer there, and you can only tell that it's a porcelain thermometer. I believe for Hollywood purposes, the advertising on that particular thermometer has been covered over with, looks like either duct tape or some sort of covering that most people would never notice. Now, I believe that to be a mail pouch tobacco piece, just judging by the way the writing is, the way that it's built. I had one of those original in great shape, almost new old stock here in the store last year and sold it for $550. So that's kind of what you're looking at there. The oil cans in the windows would be worth an absolute mint, depending on what they are. You can't really read the advertising, but you can tell they're oil cans and stacked. To the best of my mathematical ability, I counted 46, or what would be 46 cans if you could see them all. Estimating those at about $30 a piece. Now, that being said, a good aviation oil can or a Harley-Davidson oil can from the time could be worth valued up into the thousands of dollars. But I'm guessing Gomer probably didn't have any of those. Another thing that you might look over in the value of this is the screen door that goes into the service station. Those can easily sell for $250 bare like that one is, but if you've got one that's got some original advertising on it, I've seen them sell for $1,500, $2,000. So there's some value there. We're going to value that one at $250 for our particular reasoning. Now look at the tire in the front. It's still wrapped in the old paper. We'll call that a new old stock bi-supply gum dipped tire. If you were to buy one of those today, depending on the brand, you could average around $250. Probably even $200 for the stand that it sits on, because that would most likely have advertising on it if you look closely, as was with the thermometer. The advertising has been blanked out. Andy is standing in front of a drink cooler. There were a couple of scenes specifically in which he used that drink cooler for the show. But what I can tell you there is it's not red. Most of the drink coolers of the time would have been Coca-Cola. They're obviously not going to advertise for a particular brand on Andy Griffith, but this one is white, which makes me think that it could possibly be knee-high or something along those lines, which would make it much more valuable than a Coke cooler. But I'm going to value that one. It's a flat top, would have folding lids. I'm going to value that one in the $750 range, and it could easily fetch $1,000 more depending on the advertising on it. And the elephant in the room is the gas pump front and center. The best of my research, I've kind of reached out to some gas pump guys. I believe that to be a Martin Schwartz Model 70. And it's a pretty rare pump in its condition. Again, it would have had a specific brand gasoline company globe on top of it. That one just has a white globe because they wouldn't obviously advertise for any particular company. Depending on the globe that's on top, that could be a $3,000 pump or a $5,000 pump. But we've got it valued at $3,500 for the sake of our time together here. Really cool old pump. So what you're looking at there when you ask yourself the question, what is Mayberry worth by today's standards? I'm looking at about $25,000 to $26,000 in that particular photo, and it would have probably easily been $250 at that time, maybe a little more. Well, with the cars, maybe a little bit more, but so I just thought it'd be a fun thing for you to look through some of the pictures that you see on a regular basis and train your eye, or as if you're me, then you have this curse. You can't watch an old TV show without seeing the bowls. My wife gets tired of hearing me quote the pattern of Pyrex that they use in the movies. And I talked to another friend today. He's like, I counted 4 different types of fuel pumps that were used at Gomer service station, and he's probably the only person that's ever noticed the difference. But it's always a fun thing, and I hope you've enjoyed this particular video. If you do like what we do, would you subscribe, share these videos, click the notification bell so that you can be notified when we add some new videos. But it's a good time. I hope you've enjoyed it and you found out a little bit of what Mayberry might be worth.